Welcome to RPTV Weekly News. I'm Gabriel, joined by Kedar, Marcelo, and Jabin, ready to bring you the latest updates from Regent Park and its surroundings.
In this episode, we'll cover important events and community updates from November 24th to December 1st. Stay with us for the news that matters to our community.
Report of the SDP Stakeholders Table meeting on November 27th, 2024. Man charged in violent carjacking that left victim shot in Regent Park. Covenant House, Toronto expands winter care for youth experiencing homelessness. Ontario passes bill allowing removal of Toronto bike lanes. Local ice rinks are now open. Events and jobs in the community.
Report of the SDP Stakeholders Table meeting on November the 27th, 2024.
The Regent Park Social Development Plan, SDP Stakeholders Table, convened for its quarterly hybrid meeting at the Urban Pavilion in Regent Park, located at 660 Dundas Street East, 3rd floor. The major item for the meeting was a presentation of the SDP Strategic Plan by the Strategic Planning Committee. The meeting followed an agenda that included introduction, status of the SDP Strategic Plan, and city refresh, summary of the strategic plan process, approval of major changes, next steps, announcements, City of Toronto meeting. The meeting began with a warm welcome and land acknowledgement by SDP resident co-chair Waleed Kagali Ali. Waleed, who provided an overview of the SDP's purpose, community belonging through inclusion and social cohesion. He also explained the parts of the SDP network, which includes the stakeholders table, the working groups, safety network, community building, employment and economic development, communication, and the committees, planning, evaluation, funding, terms of reference, and community benefits.
Regent Park resident Deanie Peters began the business of the meeting by providing some background information about the 2024 SDP Strategic Plan, a process conducted by the Strategic Planning Committee of the SDP to involve the membership of the SDP in reviewing and changing SDP structures, directions, and activities for the next 3 to 5 years. The 2024 SDP Strategic Plan's purpose is to help the SDP to be current and relevant, be effective, be strategic, and analytical. The strategic plan also identifies opportunities for new growth, new partnership, and new roles.
A while ago, we came to you and we asked you for your consent to start a strategic planning process. And the strategic plan, it's a long-term plan. So the process was conducted by the Strategic Planning Committee of the SDP to involve membership of the SDP in reviewing and changing SDP structures, directions, and activities for the next 3 to 5 years.
Deanie also spoke about the city's refresh of the SDP, a process conducted by the City of Toronto to review primarily the city's role in the SDP. According to Deanie, the city's refresh may also affect the SDP's process and structure. Grassroots agency member Michael Rosenberg explained the consensus decision-making process. According to Michael, the goal of this meeting is for the SDP Stakeholders Table to review the proposed changes that the SDP Strategic Planning Committee is presenting to the SDP Stakeholders Table for members to decide whether or not to approve them.
We're trying to get consensus, so we would only decide that if we realized there was really no other alternative. So as we go through each slide, it will result either in agreement, amendment, some further discussion, or possibly a vote.
Next, Regent Park resident and co-chair of the Community Building Working Group, Elena, presented the proposed new goals of the SDP. The SDP's new overall goal is to engage in projects that create a sense of belonging, inclusion, and cohesion to bring Regent Park together as one community and improve the social environment in Regent Park.
The social Inclusion and cohesion, as you know, is just bringing all the community together. Listen to their voices, and of course, act based on their challenges and requests. Now, we have revised it to the new one, that the SDP has the overall goals to engage in projects that create a sense of a belonging, inclusion, and cohesion to bring Regent Park together as one community, and that improve the social environment in Regent Park.
The reasons for changing the goal by expanding on the previous goal of social inclusion and cohesion is to make it clear to members that inclusion and cohesion mean one Regent Park inclusive of income, language, culture, age, and indicate that the SDP's future projects that benefit the community. The new goal of the SDP was unanimously passed by the stakeholders table.
Next, Michael presented on the new strategic directions. The new strategic directions will provide guidance on what needs to be done across the SDP network, working groups, and committees. They are create a sense of belonging, inclusion, and cohesion that brings Regent Park together, improve the social environment in Regent Park, empower residents and residents groups to set priorities both within the SDP and for Regent Park, have equal numbers of TCHC and market residents.
Strategic directions, the only words we changed is at the end of the last one where it says equal number of, and then we're going to add the words engaged in the SDP. So equal numbers of TCHC and market residents engaged in the SDP, because that was what we actually meant by it, and that will make sure everybody reads it correctly.
The new strategic directions of SDP was unanimously passed by the stakeholders table.
Adonis Huggins, an agency member and co-chair of the Communications Committee, outlined the proposed changes around decision-making. Currently, the stakeholders table makes major decisions for the SDP. The proposed new change is that the Planning Committee should be the place where decisions should be made and not the stakeholders table. Instead, the stakeholders table should be a place for all stakeholders, including residents and organizations, to gather for the purpose of engagement, consultation, and information sharing, but not decision-making. Adonis explained the reasons for change in decision-making powers. The SDP stakeholders table only meets 4 times a year and often does not have time, nor the background information required to consider major decisions. The Planning Committee, on the other hand, meets weekly, and as a consequence, most decisions are already being made by the Planning Committee since it is able to give detailed consideration to each matter. The change will enable increased opportunities for residents to be involved in decision-making. If approved, the role of the Planning Committee will change from its present role of coordination and alignment and only make decisions on time-sensitive issues to making decisions for the SDP, receiving updates from working groups and committees, being responsible for coordination and alignment, resourcing, strategic planning, monitoring, evaluation, data management, and maintaining documents. The other SDP committees will now be subcommittees of the Planning Committee.
And so one of the things we want to change is who makes decisions for the SDP. So currently, the stakeholder table makes decisions for the SDP. The new change is that the stakeholders table is for all stakeholders, including residents and organizations, and its purpose is engagement, consultation, and information sharing. Essentially, we want this group to come together and tell the SDP what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see less of, how can I participate, what meetings are going on, where can I sign up for a working group, we should have a working group about something else, And so all those feedback will be considered for another decision-making piece that we will add, but it's basically to the planning committee. The planning committee meets every week. Every week. We have a meeting from 1 to 3 o'clock, and then alternatively, because some people can't make it in the daytime, we have an evening meeting from 5 to 7. So every week we have one of those meetings. And so there's lots of opportunities to talk about decisions, to get information, to clarify things, and then to work together to come to a decision about things. If we had a stakeholders table where the stakeholders table made all the decisions, then say we didn't make a decision today, we would have to wait 3 months for another decision. So that's why we made the change. So basically, the stakeholders table, we want to change the decision-making away from the stakeholders table to the planning committee. And have this table, we still want to get together as a community every 3 months or 4 months, 4 times a year, where we could talk to you and report back to things that have happened in the SDP network, and what, most importantly, get your opinions about what should happen in the SDP network so that we could take back to the planning committee. So really, we want to have an opportunity for you guys to tell us what we should be doing. And also, opportunities for you to get involved as well, right? Opportunities to find out about the working groups and say, hey, I want to be part of this working group. How can I be part of that? If you're a new resident, you won't know that. So that's why we want these meetings to continue, and these meetings are so important. We want the community involved in these meetings, and then a planning committee. And so we're going to discuss the planning committee now. Go back to the planning committee. Go back for a little bit. Just. Oh, well. Go back to the other one for a while? Yeah. So just the planning committee makes decisions for the SDP. So this is the new. So the planning committee, before the planning committee did coordination and alignment and only dealt with time-sensitive decisions. Now the new change is the planning committee makes decisions for the SDP, receives updates from the working groups and committees, and is responsible for coordination and alignment, resourcing, strategic planning, monitoring, evaluation, data management, and maintaining documents. The other SDP committees will now be subcommittees of the planning committee. So we talked about a community benefits committee, and before they were their own committees. Now we're putting all the committees inside the planning committee. The other committees we had was evaluation. It will now be a subcommittee of the planning committee. Was there another? The fundraising committee. Again, that was a standalone committee. It will now be reporting to the planning committee. It will be under the planning committee. So that's the idea, that everything is coordinated through the planning committee. And the reasons for the change, again, is we want residents to continue making decisions for the planning committee, but we want you to come to the planning committee every week. Every week we want to see you there. Everybody, we want to see you there. But we also want you to be part of the working groups, right? We want you to join the working groups and come to the planning committee.
Adonis also introduced changes to the membership of the planning committee. While anyone can still participate on the planning committee, only active residents and organizational members of each working group and committee can be on the planning committee as formal voting members. Representation from all working groups and committees will be required at the planning committee. Additionally, at least half of the voting members on the planning committee from each working group or committee must be a resident. Adonis emphasized the point that all non-voting members, including representatives from the City of Toronto, TCHC, developers, executive directors network, and residents and organizations who are not active in a working group can still participate in the planning committee's consensus decision-making process. they will not be able to be allowed to participate in any voting process related to decision making. Adonis explained that the term active member of working group or committee will be defined in the terms of reference, a document that outlines the structure, procedures, and role of the SDP.
Everybody's welcome to the planning committee, but there are voting members and non-voting members. Only the voting members will vote if there's an item that we can't make a decision on, that we can't come to a consensus on. And only half of those members who are voting have to be residents of Regent Park. The rest have to watch. All right? If you're not a resident of Regent Park, no matter if you're an organization, if you're not half of your working groups, half of you are not representing the working group but are not residents of Regent Park, you don't get to vote.
When it came time for the stakeholders table to make a decision around the proposed changes to decision making and the changes in the membership of the planning committee, some members objected to the proposal to have the planning committee be the decision making body of the SDP. After some debate, a compromise was reached and the decision was made to have both the planning committee and the stakeholders table be empowered to make decisions on a trial period of 1 year's time. The new amendment, with 3 abstentions, was unanimously passed by the stakeholders table.
Resident Waleed Kogali Ali continued with new proposals related to the changes of working groups. Currently, the SDP has 4 working groups: safety, community building, employment and economic development, and communication. According to new changes, any resident and organization that operates in Regent Park to improve the social environment in Regent Park and are aligned with social inclusion and cohesion in their main aspects can become a working group. Working groups will follow the SDP terms of reference. Waleed highlighted the reasons for change, which is to increase relevance and responsiveness of the SDP. According to Waleed, expanded working groups will be able to better engage the participation of linguistic and cultural groups, youth, seniors, and marginalized people.
What we're proposing is let us be relevant to the times. If the youth want to come up with their own working groups, let it happen, right? Those are the changes we're proposing, so we can increase relevance and responsiveness of the SDP, engage linguistic and cultural groups, youth, seniors, and marginalized groups. So if seniors want to come together to create a working group, let it happen.
The presented changes to the working groups were unanimously passed by the stakeholders table. The next session was about co-chairs presented by Deanie Peters. Although there was no changes in the structures of the SDP co-chairs, all organizations that were responsible for appointing co-chairs, RPNA, TCHC, and the EED network, will for transparency inform the planning committee of the procedures it uses to select SDP co-chairs, and the planning committee can only refuse to accept the co-chairs if the procedures were not followed. Additionally, the role of all organizations and agency co-chairs involved in the SDP are to support resident leadership.
The reason for the change is confidence in the process and to improve accountability to the organizations that appoint the co-chairs, and transparency to the SDP, and to increase the role and opportunities for our residents.
The changes to the co-chairs were unanimously passed by the stakeholders table.
Conflict resolution changes was presented by Michael Rosenberg. A year ago, the Shaping SDP Culture Policy and Procedure was adopted by SDP Network for a trial period. Michael informed members that the new proposal is to include the Shaping SDP Culture into the terms of reference. Additionally, the SDP plan included the goal of increasing the network's capacity to engage in conflict resolution, mediation, and in responding to trauma. Lastly, to ensure that violation complaints are not ignored. The SDP administrative assistant role will be expanded to help members navigate the conflict resolution process and to help members fill out reports on incidents. These incident reports will be given back to the working group or committee where the issues arose. One of the reasons for change is to ensure that violations of the Shaping SDP culture are addressed and that the use of the conflict resolution process is increased.
So conflict resolution is all about finding something that solves the problem. There are many different ways to get to that point. It can be done in person. It can be done by somebody going around and talking to each of the people individually if they don't want to directly meet with each other. There's lots of ways that this can be done to get to the point where issues are resolved. And we basically created a structure or a framework that says we can do that. And since then, it has been used a few times.
The changes of conflict resolution were unanimously passed. The stakeholders table of November the 27, 2024 meeting concluded with announcements.
Man charged in violent carjacking that left victim shot in Regent Park. Toronto police report that on the evening of Wednesday, November 27th, 29-year-old Troy Dennis Ledrew, who has no fixed address, approached multiple vehicles stopped at red lights in the Dundas Street East and River Street area. Armed with a loaded handgun, he allegedly shot one driver, leaving them hospitalized with serious injuries, before attempting to hijack several other vehicles. Ledrew successfully stole one car and drove it to a parking lot near Lakeshore Boulevard East and Carlaw Avenue. Police say he then tried to carjack another vehicle before fleeing on foot. Officers from multiple divisions apprehended him nearby, recovering a loaded handgun.
Troy Ledrew, 29 years old, is now in Toronto Police custody. Approximately 7:15 p.m., Toronto Police responded to a shooting in the area of Dundas Street and Carroll Street. We believe the suspect committed multiple attempted carjackings and shootings from Dundas and Carroll to Lakeshore in Carlaw. Tragically, during one of these carjackings, an individual was shot and was rushed to hospital where they're currently receiving care. At approximately 7:40 p.m., police intercepted him at Lakeshore in Carlaw, where he abandoned his vehicle and fled on foot. Toronto police officers gave chase and located the individual and arrested him. He was in possession of a firearm. This remains an active and complex investigation, and we are still working to establish a complete timeline. However, what is critical to know is this. The suspect is in custody and there is no further threat to public safety. There appear to be no other victims other than the one shooting victim that is in the hospital currently. Our thoughts and prayers are with the individual at the hospital and their family.
The charges against Ledrew are extensive, including 2 counts of attempted murder, 6 counts of robbery with a firearm, and aggravated assault. He was also wanted by Ontario Provincial Police for a related carjacking and shooting incident on Highway 401 near Renforth Drive in Mississauga a day earlier. Investigations continue, and anyone with information is encouraged to contact police or Crime Stoppers.
Covenant House Toronto expands winter care for youth experiencing homelessness. This winter, Covenant House Toronto is extending its critical services with the launch of its Youth Winter Respite Program, operating 24/7 from November to April. The program provides a safe space for young people aged 16 to 24, offering shelter, meals, healthcare, mental health services, and access to employment and education resources. As winter weather sets in, the need for safe, warm spaces is especially urgent, with homelessness affecting over 1,000 young people in Toronto each night. Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow speaks about the importance of Covenant House Toronto Youth Winter Respite Program.
We know that we have an affordability crisis in Toronto. It's really expensive to rent anything, whether it's a basement room, a single room, a tiny room. It is just extremely expensive. And for young people, it's even harder. We know that a young person that experience homelessness have different causes. They might be leaving an abusive family. They may be leaving a homeland that discriminate against them because of who they are. The consequence of being on the street is also different. The interventions needed for these young people are also different. We are very pleased today to announce that the City of Toronto is investing over $800,000 for a winter respite program for young people.
Ontario passes bill allowing removal of Toronto bike lanes. The Ontario government has passed Bill 212 on November the 25th, granting the province authority to remove major bike lanes in Toronto, and a move sparking widespread controversy. The bill targets bike lanes on Bloor Street, Yonge Street, and University Avenue, raising concerns among cycling advocates and municipal leaders. Critics argue the legislation prioritizes vehicle traffic and undermines local decision-making with potential safety and environmental risks. This bill highlights tensions between provincial policies and local community priorities.
Local ice rinks are now open. Winter is here and it's the perfect time to enjoy some outdoor skating. Our community offers 3 outdoor rinks: Riverdale Park East, 550 Broadview, Regent Park Athletic Grounds, 480 Shooter, and Sherbourne Common, 5 Lower Sherbourne. For those who prefer to skate indoors, Moss Park Arena, 140 Sherbourne, has you covered with an indoor rink. As of Thursday, November 28th, both Regent Park and Moss Park outdoor rinks are open. Before you go, be sure to check the City Rink status map for updates. Whether you're skating under the open sky or in a warmer indoor space, there's no shortage of places to enjoy the winter.
Affordable housing rental units at 175 Oak Street. TCHC is now accepting expression of interest for random selection submissions for affordable housing. Submit the online form by Friday, December 13, 2024. 175 Oak Street building is located in Regent Park, ready for occupation in early 2025. 1 and 2 bedroom units available. For more information, visit torontohousing.ca/175 Oak Street.
And that's all for today's show, folks. I'm Kedar Ahmed, and I've been joined by my co-hosts, Marcelo, Gabriel, and Jabin. A big thank you to our dedicated team who contributed to this week's episode. And from Focus Media Arts Center, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please follow our social media platforms. For more information, check out our website.